Deep in the heart of Ireland's wilds, where the wind carries secrets older than the stones, there exists a tale that chills the soul, a scream that pierces the night, a wail so raw it stops the heart. They call it the Banshee's cry, the song of a ghostly woman bound to herald death. Welcome to the Grimnest, a shadowed corner of stories where the forgotten and the feared claw their way into the light. Tonight, we tread the fog-choked paths of Galway's woods, where the Banshee sings for the doomed, and no one escapes her gaze. Settle in, for this tale will linger long after the fire dies. In the shadow of Galway's misty shores, Claddagh village clung to the edge of the wild, its stone cottages weathered by sea salt and time. Seamus O'Connor, a grizzled farmer with a limp from a boyhood fall and a temper sharpened by hard years, lived in one such cottage with his wife, Maeve, and their 2 hungry children. The autumn of 1892 was unkind. Their crops withered, the soil turned to mud, and the village buzzed with whispers of bad omens. At the tavern, old men spoke of the Banshee, a ghostly woman whose wail foretold death, her cry echoing through the Galway woods. Seamus scoffed, his pipe glowing as he waved off the tales. "Superstition for fools," he grunted, his voice rough as gravel. "No ghost'll scare me from my traps." Maeve, though, carried the weight of her grandmother's stories. Decades ago, a wail had preceded her uncle's sudden death. His body found cold with no cause. Her eyes, wide with worry, followed Seamus as he prepared to check his snares in the woods, a task forced by their dwindling stores. "Don't go tonight, Seamus," she pleaded, clutching her shawl, the firelight flickering across her pale face. "The woods aren't right. Don't tempt the dark." He chuckled, a hollow sound, and hoisted his lantern, its weak flame dancing in the draft. "I'll be back by moonrise," he said, limping into the fog that swallowed the village like a shroud. The Galway woods were a labyrinth of twisted oaks and gnarled roots, their branches clawing at the sky. That night, they were wrong, too silent, the usual chorus of owls and rustling leaves replaced by a stillness that pressed against Seamus's chest like a stone. His lantern cast a feeble glow, barely piercing the fog, which curled around him, thick and cold, like breath from a grave. His bad leg ached, each step a grimace, but he pushed on, muttering curses to drown the unease creeping up his spine. The air felt heavy, watchful, as if the woods themselves held their breath. Halfway to his traps, a sound sliced through the silence. A wail, raw and unearthly, rising from the earth like a wound torn open. It wasn't human, wasn't animal, but something older, laced with grief and fury. Seamus froze, his pulse hammering, the lantern trembling in his grip. His leg buckled, nearly sending him to the ground. "Who's there?" he roared, his voice swallowed by the mist. The wail ceased, abrupt as a snapped thread, but the air grew denser, prickling his skin. He limped to his nearest trap, finding it smashed, its iron jaws twisted, claw marks gleaming in the wood. Too large for a wolf, too precise for a man. His breath hitched. Something was out there, and it wasn't hunting rabbits. Seamus's stubbornness, a shield against fear, drove him deeper into the woods. The fog seemed to coil tighter, its tendrils brushing his face like cold fingers. His lantern flickered, the flame shrinking despite a full reservoir, casting jagged shadows that danced just beyond his sight. Then he saw it, an old grave half hidden by moss, its weathered stone cracked down the center. The name etched upon it was one he knew. Brendan Kelly, a villager who vanished a decade ago, rumored to have heard the Banshee before his horse threw him into a ravine. Seamus's throat tightened, his pipe smoke now a bitter taste. He backed away, but the wail returned, closer, sharper, a woman's voice dripping with centuries of sorrow. He spun, lantern shaking, and glimpsed a shape through the mist. A figure, fleeting, draped in a tattered shroud, its silver hair writhing like storm clouds. It vanished when he blinked, leaving only the echo of its cry. His heart pounded, but his mind clung to logic. Fog played tricks, exhaustion bred phantoms. Yet the claw marks, the grave, and the wail gnawed at him. He gripped his lantern tighter, its heat his only anchor, and pressed on, determined to prove the woods held no ghosts. The woods grew hostile, their silence now a predator's patience. Every snap of a twig, every rustle in the fog, sent Seamus's pulse racing. The wail came in waves, sometimes distant, sometimes so close it vibrated in his chest, each cry peeling away his bravado. His lantern flickered erratically, its flame blew at the edges, casting the trees into grotesque shapes, branches like skeletal hands, roots like coiled serpents. The fog thickened, no longer passive but alive, swirling to block his path back to the village, herding him deeper into the dark. He stumbled upon another trap, this one untouched but surrounded by a circle of small, jagged stones, unnatural in their precision, as if placed by hand. Nearby, a tree bore fresh scratches, oozing sap like blood, forming a symbol he didn't recognize but felt in his bones. A warning. The wail surged again, and this time he saw her clearly through the mist. The Banshee hovered, her bone-white face a mask of anguish, her hollow eyes twin voids that seemed to pull at his soul. Her silver hair twisted, defying the still air, and her tattered shroud fluttered, revealing glimpses of skeletal limbs. "Seamus O'Connor," she hissed, her voice sharp as frost, cutting through his thoughts. "My song is not for you." Her skeletal hand pointed past him, into the blackness beyond the trees, and her wail erupted. A sound so shattering it drove him to his knees, hands clamped over his ears, his mind unraveling like frayed rope. In the lantern's faltering light, fragments of her past flickered before him. A woman, once alive, cursed to wail for the doomed, her grief bound to the woods for eternity. The vision faded, but the wail chased him as he staggered to his feet, branches clawing his face, his bad legs screaming with each step. Blood trickled from a scratch on his cheek, warm against the cold, and the fog seemed to taste it, tightening around him. He ran or tried, his limp slowing him, the Banshee's cry a relentless hound at his heels, guiding him not to safety but to a truth he wasn't ready to face. Seamus crashed through the woods, his lantern now a dying ember, its glass cracked from a fall he didn't remember. The wail was everywhere. Inside him, a force that shook his bones and blurred his vision. He burst into a clearing, the fog parting like a curtain, revealing a circle of ancient stones, their surfaces etched with runes that pulsed faintly, as if alive. In the center stood the Banshee, no longer drifting but solid, her presence a weight that crushed the air from his lungs. Her hollow eyes locked onto his, and her voice, now a low, guttural moan, spoke his name again, each syllable a nail in his heart. "You cannot run," she said, her words weaving through the wail, which rose to a crescendo that tore at his sanity. Her skeletal hand reached out, not to touch him but to point again, this time toward the village, toward his home. The realization hit like a blade. Her song wasn't for him. It was for someone he loved. Maeve's face flashed in his mind, her whispered fear, her plea to stay. He screamed, a raw, desperate sound, and lunged forward, as if he could fight death itself. The Banshee's wail peaked, a sonic wave that shattered his lantern, plunging the clearing into darkness. In that instant, her form dissolved, but her eyes lingered, burning in the void, and a cold, claw-like touch grazed his hand, leaving a faint, stinging mark. Seamus collapsed, gasping, the silence that followed heavier than the wail. The fog lifted slightly, the stones now still, their runes dark. He crawled, then staggered, back toward the village, his leg numb, his mind a splintered mess. The woods released him, their hostility fading, but the mark on his hand throbbed, a reminder of what he'd seen, what he'd survived. Seamus stumbled into his cottage at dawn, his clothes torn, his face bloodied. "The Banshee, she spared me," he gasped, collapsing into Maeve's arms. Her hands shook as she clutched him, her eyes searching his, wide with dread. "Who, Seamus? Who's she taken?" He couldn't answer, the Banshee's hollow eyes seared into his mind, her pointed finger a prophecy he couldn't voice. They sat by the dying fire, the silence between them choked with fear, the mark on his hand glowing faintly in the dim light, like embers under skin. Hours later, a neighbor's knock shattered the quiet. "It's Liam, the hill farmer's boy," the man stammered, his face ashen. "Dead in his bed, no cause. His mother heard a wail last night." Maeve wept, crossing herself, her sobs filling the cottage. But then she froze, her voice a whisper. "I heard it too, Seamus. In my dreams." He stared at her, his heart sinking, the mark on his hand pulsing now, darker, spreading like ink. The Banshee's words echoed, "Not for you." Seamus never spoke of that night again, nor ventured near the Galway woods. But on quiet nights, when the wind carried a faint, mournful wail, he clutched Maeve's hand, wondering who the Banshee would sing for next, and whether the mark on his hand was a warning or a claim. The Grimnest leaves you with this shadow. Who does the Banshee's wail call next? Speak their name, if you dare, or share what terror this tale has stirred in your heart. Pass this story to those who crave the dark, and let the wood's secrets haunt them too. Hit the like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more chilling tales every week. Share it with someone who loves the dark side. Thank you.